Their days of violence and bloodshed in this country are coming to an end very fast. We're going to save lives, not only just Americans, but we're going to save lives of citizens and those legal migrants who many times are the victims of these illegal alien crimes.
That's former acting ICE director and Mr. Trump's nominee for border czar Tom Homan on the president-elect's plan for mass deportations. For more on how that may play out, I'm joined by former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
So Tom Homan's fired up and ready to go. How do you execute mass deportations, possibly?
Well, it seems like, and Tom Homan is on this and has been doing this for, 30 plus years. But I think the thing they're going to focus on first is going to be the criminals that are in this country. People, not just criminals from entering this country, but committed crimes. And, with these sanctuary cities have been shielding them from deportation, which is just astonishing to me that this is actually happening. And you were, playing the clip from the Laken Riley murder. And if we had just followed our immigration existing law, this murder would have not happened, assuming he is guilty, and it seems like the evidence is overwhelming. But I think Tom Homan is going to focus on sanctuary cities, focus on criminals that are sitting there in jail. And what's really important about this appointment is he's a border czar, which is really important because the DOJ they have to be able to work with DOJ, DHS, all of them together, as well as locals. And there's so much that can be done in terms of possibly deputizing local police to help them help ICE catch these people and deport them. So it's really, when you're talking about Trump's picks, probably one of, I want to say his strongest, but probably as strong as any pick. And they are focused on this issue, and they're determined to take care of it.
There's a lot of discussion about what a Trump attorney general could do to the Department of Justice. Some senators want to see the House ethics report on Matt Gaetz, the nominee to be the attorney general. House Speaker Mike Johnson talked about that today.
The Speaker doesn't control the Ethics Committee. I've only expressed my opinion that we should stick to the tradition and not release a report on a former member of the House because it would open a dangerous Pandora's box. That's my opinion.
What about Gaetz? And if confirmed, what about his impact?
Well, it seems like the Gaetz pick is really reflective of what's been going on in the DOJ for the last 4 years, the politicization of the DOJ. You put the Trump cases aside, and you still have the politicization of parents, investigating parents testifying at school board meetings. You have refusing to prosecute people illegally protesting outside of Supreme Court justices' homes. We've had politicization in every respect, and public safety has taken a back seat. So I think they want to get to the bottom of it, and really the disruptor that Matt Gaetz is, whether or not it's Matt Gaetz or somebody else, Donald Trump is looking for somebody that's going to put the politics aside and focus on public safety. And when you look at the overall picture here, he's appointing Todd Blanche, his personal lawyer, to be the deputy attorney general. And Todd Blanche is a former federal prosecutor, extraordinarily well respected. You won't hear a bad thing about him. And he'll be the one essentially running the department. And again, they're going to get back to focused on public safety, violent crimes, things that are affecting people day in and day out, and putting the politics aside.
Do you expect a lot of departures from the Justice Department one way or another?
Either way, you're going to have a lot of departures. You have all the politicals that are going to be looking to leave, and you're going to have some career people that may look at this as a time to leave. And, I would think President Trump would probably say good riddance to a lot of these people and bring some new people in, and let's get the focus on what's helping the American people. The Department of Justice should not be a political instrument to get your enemies or anything else. It should be keeping people safe, keeping our nation safe.
President-elect Trump wants Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to take a closer look at making government more efficient. What kind of pushback do you think we'll get from the federal government? And do you have any concerns about conflicts of interest with Elon Musk?
Yeah, will they get pushback? Ultimately, yes. Back in 1982, there was President Reagan appointed what's called the Grace Commission that looked at, inefficiency in government, and they found that 1/3 of all tax dollars were being essentially wasted through fraud, abuse, whatever. I expect they're going to find the same type of thing, maybe even worse. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will find that. But I think what will make their chances of being successful higher is they have a larger platform to really highlight some of these abuses. Because you have these things, and Rand Paul puts out his list every year, the Festivus list, and it's like they're investigating whether Labrador retrievers, the color of their fur makes their body temperature hotter or colder, and things like that may in fact fact be quite interesting, but shouldn't really be used for tax dollars. So I think they will be effective. They will get pushback. If you ever want to cut a government agency or even any part of it, everyone acts like the world's coming to an end. But I think they have a chance of success, particularly if they identify specific instances of inefficiency or waste or duplication. They will attack those and they'll be relentless on it, and hopefully they will be successful.
Jonathan Fahey, great to have your perspective today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.